Cold open, the hook. Picture this. A woman sits alone in a boardroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan skyline behind her. 20 executives wait for her word. She's wearing a Chanel suit. Her voice is calm, authoritative. Gentlemen, the proposal is rejected. We don't compromise on structural integrity. Ever. The room goes silent. But here's what you don't know yet. 12 hours earlier, this same woman was sitting in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, wearing a faded house dress, eating leftover pasta from a plastic container. Who is she? Why is she living two completely different lives? That's what I'm about to tell you. Main narrative begins. Let me take you back to where it all started. Brooklyn, New York. Early November. The kind of morning where the cold seeps through the windows. Elena Martinez woke up at 5:30 a.m. Same as every day for the past 23 years. Her apartment was small, rent-controlled, the kind of place where the radiator clanked and the floorboards creaked. The furniture was old but clean. Everything had that lived-in feeling. Comfortable, simple, nothing fancy. She made coffee in a pot that was older than her son. The steam rose. The smell filled the tiny kitchen. She sat at the small table by the window. Her laptop glowed in the pre-dawn darkness. Most people would see an ordinary woman. Late 50s, graying hair pulled back in a simple bun. No makeup. A worn cardigan over her nightgown. But then her phone buzzed. She answered immediately. Elena Martinez speaking. Her voice changed. Sharp. Professional. Precise. Yes, Director Chen. I reviewed the structural calculations for the Hudson Yards project. There's a load-bearing issue on floors 42 through 45. We need to recalculate before the city inspection. She paused. Listened. I don't care if it delays the timeline by 3 weeks. I care about keeping that building standing for the next 100 years. Another pause. Good. Send the revised plans to my office by noon. I'll sign off personally. She hung up. Then she took a sip of her coffee. Black. No sugar. Outside, the streetlights were still on. Brooklyn was waking up slowly. Elena looked at the photo on her wall. Her son David. Graduation day. Columbia University. His smile was so bright that day. So full of hope. She'd raised him alone. His father left when David was 2. No note. No explanation. Just gone. So Elena worked. She worked like her life depended on it. Because it did. She started as a drafting assistant at a small architecture firm. 23 years ago. While David was in daycare, she went to night school. Got her architecture license. Then her master's degree. Then her professional engineering certification. She climbed. Slowly. Quietly. But she never changed how she lived. Same apartment. Same simple clothes. Same routine. Why? Because she remembered what it felt like to have nothing. And she never wanted to forget. The thing about Elena was this: she could have moved to Manhattan years ago. Could have bought a penthouse. Could have worn designer clothes every day. But she didn't. She kept her old life. Her real life. The one that reminded her where she came from. Her job was just what she did from 9 to 5. It wasn't who she was. At least, that's what she told herself. She glanced at her phone again. 6:15 a.m. Time to get ready for work. She showered quickly. Put on a simple black pantsuit. Nothing expensive. Professional but understated. She grabbed her bag. An old leather tote. Worn at the corners. She'd had it for 15 years. The subway was crowded. Bodies pressed together. The smell of coffee and morning breath. Someone's elbow in her side. Elena didn't mind. She stood there, holding the pole, watching people. A young woman in designer shoes. Scrolling through Instagram. Probably comparing herself to people she'd never meet. An older man. Construction worker. Hands rough and calloused. Eyes tired. A teenager. Headphones on. Lost in his own world. Elena saw them all. She saw herself in all of them. The subway lurched. She held on tighter. At 8:45 a.m., she walked into the Horizon Architecture Group building. It was in Midtown. Glass and steel. The kind of building that made people stop and take photos. She swiped her badge. Good morning, Ms. Martinez, the security guard said. Morning, Robert. How's your daughter? Starting college next month. Can you believe it? Elena smiled. Time flies. Tell her congratulations from me. She took the elevator to the 32nd floor. The doors opened. Good morning, Ms. Martinez. Her assistant, Jennifer, greeted her with a coffee. Your 9 o'clock is already in the conference room. Thank you, Jen. Elena walked down the hall. Her office was at the corner. Windows on 2 sides. View of the Empire State Building. But she barely looked at it anymore. She set down her bag. Opened her laptop. Emails flooded in. Project updates. Budget approvals. Design revisions. Client complaints. She worked through them methodically. At 10:30 a.m., her phone rang. Personal line. She glanced at the caller ID. David. Her heart lifted. It always did when she saw his name. Hi, sweetheart. Hey, Mom. His voice was bright. Happy. You busy? Never too busy for you. What's up? There was a pause. Elena's maternal instinct kicked in immediately. Something was different in his tone. So, Sophia and I wanted to invite you to dinner. This Friday. Elena smiled. That sounds lovely. Should I make a reservation somewhere? Actually, no. Sophia's parents are in town. From Connecticut. They want to meet you. Elena's pen stopped moving. Oh, she said carefully. That's wonderful. Yeah, so we're thinking that new French place. Le Bernardin? They have a reservation at 7. Le Bernardin. Elena knew it well. Michelin star restaurant. The kind of place where a single meal cost more than some people's weekly groceries. She'd been there before. For business dinners, client meetings. But David didn't know that. That sounds nice, she said. Mom? David's voice changed. Became careful. Almost apologetic. Sophia's parents are. They're kind of formal. You know. Traditional. Elena felt something tighten in her chest. What are you trying to say, David? He hesitated. Just. Maybe wear something nice? Not too casual? The words hung in the air. Elena stared out her window. At the city spreading below her. Are you embarrassed by me? She asked quietly. No, Mom, of course not. I just want everything to go smoothly. Sophia's parents can be judgmental, that's all. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about all the times she'd worn second-hand clothes to his school events. How she'd packed his lunches in old grocery bags. How she'd driven him to soccer practice in a car that was older than he was. She'd never been ashamed, but now, hearing the worry in his voice, she wondered. Had she embarrassed him all those years? Mom, you there? Yes, she said softly. I'm here. So you'll come? Friday at 7? Elena made a decision right then. A decision that would change everything. I'll be there, she said. Don't worry, sweetheart. I won't embarrass you. After she hung up, Elena sat very still. Jennifer knocked on her door. Ms. Martinez? The senior partners meeting in 5 minutes? I'll be right there, Elena said. She stood, straightened her jacket. Then she walked to the meeting, where she would approve a $40 million project. But her mind was somewhere else. She was thinking about Friday. About judgment. About what people see when they look at her. And about what they don't see at all. That evening, Elena rode the subway home. The train was packed with rush-hour crowds. Everyone looked exhausted, the kind of tired that seeps into your bones. She stood near the door, thinking. David's words played in her mind on repeat. Maybe wear something nice? Not too casual? She'd heard that tone before. In boardrooms. In client meetings. It was the tone of someone trying to manage expectations. Trying to control how others would perceive something. Or someone. The subway screeched to a halt at her stop. She walked up the stairs. Out onto the Brooklyn street. It was getting dark already. November did that. Stole the daylight early. The bodega on the corner was still open. Mr. Kim was restocking shelves. Evening, Mrs. Martinez. Evening, Mr. Kim. You need anything? I just got fresh bread. Elena smiled. Tomorrow, thank you. She climbed the 3 flights to her apartment. The stairs creaked under her feet. Inside, she dropped her bag on the small table by the door. The apartment was quiet, empty. It had been empty for 3 years now. Since David moved out to live with Sophia, Elena had gotten used to the silence. But sometimes, on nights like this, it felt heavier than usual. She made herself dinner. Simple. Chicken and rice. Steamed broccoli. She ate at the table, her laptop open beside her. But she wasn't looking at work emails. She was thinking about David's wedding last year. Small ceremony. City Hall. Sophia had wanted something bigger. Fancier. But David said they couldn't afford it. Elena had offered to help. David had refused. Mom, you've done enough. You've given me everything. Let us start our own life. She'd been proud of him for that. Her son. Independent. Strong. Not willing to take handouts. But now she wondered, had Sophia been disappointed? Did Sophia know that Elena could have paid for a wedding at the plaza? If she'd wanted to? Because Elena never told anyone. She kept her professional life and personal life completely separate. At work, she was Elena Williams, Executive Vice President of Horizon Architecture Group, one of the most respected structural engineers in New York. The woman who'd designed the framework for 3 of the city's newest skyscrapers. At home, she was just mom. Just Elena, the woman who shopped at discount stores and rode the subway. And lived in a rent-controlled apartment. It wasn't a lie, exactly. This was who she really was. The job was just the job. But now, sitting in her quiet apartment, she realized something. David didn't know who she was. Not really. He knew the mother who'd struggled to make ends meet. Who'd worked 2 jobs to put him through school. Who'd clipped coupons and bought day-old bread. He didn't know about the promotions, the raises, the success, because she'd never told him. Why? Elena wasn't entirely sure. Maybe because she didn't want him to feel like he owed her anything. Maybe because she didn't want money to change their relationship. Or maybe because she was afraid. Afraid that if he knew she was successful, he'd see her differently. See her as someone who'd chosen work over him. Even though that wasn't true. She'd worked for him. Everything was always for him. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "Thanks for agreeing to dinner, Mom. I know Sophia's parents will love you." Elena stared at the message. Then she typed back, "Looking forward to it, sweetheart." She set the phone down. Stood up. Walked to her closet. She opened the door and looked at her clothes. Simple shirts. Plain pants. A few old dresses. Nothing expensive. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would fit in at Le Bernardin with people from Connecticut. Who drove Mercedes and vacationed in the Hamptons. She could go shopping. Could buy something new. Something that would impress Sophia's parents. But even as the thought crossed her mind, she knew she wouldn't. Because something else was forming in her head. A different idea. David was worried about her embarrassing him. Sophia's parents were judgmental. What did that mean, exactly? It meant they would judge her based on appearance. On money. On status. They would look at her clothes. Her shoes. Her handbag. And they would make assumptions. Elena had spent 23 years in architecture. She knew about foundations. About what held things up. And she knew that the most important structures were often invisible. The steel beams inside walls. The support columns hidden behind drywall. The things that kept buildings standing weren't always the things people noticed. The same was true for people. Elena walked back to her table. She opened her laptop again. Typed in Le Bernardin reviews. Page after page of praise. 5-star ratings. Photos of elegant diners in designer clothes. She clicked on the image gallery. Saw women in Chanel, men in Armani, jewelry that cost more than cars. Then she closed the laptop. Made her decision. She would go to that dinner. And she would wear exactly what she wore every day. Her simple gray dress. The one she'd bought at Marshall's 5 years ago. Her comfortable flats. Scuffed at the toes. Her old handbag. The one with the worn strap. She would go as herself. As the real Elena. Not because she couldn't afford better. But because she wanted to see something. She wanted to see who these people really were. Whether Sophia's parents would judge a book by its cover. Whether her son would be embarrassed of her. Whether the world had taught them to value the wrong things. It was a test. Not for her. For them. Elena felt something settle in her chest. Not anger. Not resentment. Just quiet curiosity. And maybe a little bit of sadness. Because she realized that at some point, without meaning to, she'd failed to teach her son something important. She'd taught him to work hard. To be independent. To value education. But she'd never taught him that true worth has nothing to do with appearance. That dignity doesn't require designer labels. That respect should be given freely, not earned through displays of wealth. Maybe she'd been so busy being humble that she'd forgotten to show him what humility actually meant. Well, Friday would be a lesson. For all of them. Chapter 3. The shabby dress, the fancy restaurant. Friday arrived cold and gray. Elena went through her usual routine. Coffee at 5:30. Subway at 7:15. Office by 8:45. At 3 o'clock, she wrapped up her work. Changed in the executive bathroom. She'd brought her clothes in a simple grocery bag. The gray dress, the comfortable flats, her old bag. She looked at herself in the mirror. The dress was plain, cotton blend. It hung loosely on her frame. The shoes were scuffed. The bag's leather was cracked. She looked like someone who shopped at thrift stores. Like someone who counted pennies. Perfect. She left the building at 3:30. Took the subway to Midtown. The restaurant was in Rockefeller Center. All glass and elegance. Elena arrived at 6:45. 15 minutes early. Through the windows, she could see white tablecloths. Crystal glasses. Waiters moving like dancers. She saw David arrive. Her son, 26 years old, wearing a new suit. He looked nervous. Kept adjusting his tie. Then Sophia appeared. Blonde hair in an elegant twist. Burgundy dress. She looked expensive. At 6:55, a silver Mercedes pulled up. A couple emerged. The man was tall. Silver hair. Expensive coat. The woman wore fur. Real fur. Her jewelry caught the streetlight. They walked inside without looking at the doorman. Elena checked her watch. 7:00 p.m. exactly. She crossed the street. The doorman opened the door for her. She smiled at him. Thank you. He looked surprised. You're welcome, ma'am. Inside, the host approached immediately. His eyes scanned her. Took in her simple dress. Her worn shoes. His expression changed. Just slightly. But Elena caught it. The flicker of judgment. Do you have a reservation? His tone was polite. But barely. I'm meeting my son. David Williams' party? The host checked his screen. His eyebrows rose slightly. Of course. Right this way. He led her through the restaurant. Elena felt eyes on her. Other diners glancing up. Taking in her appearance. She was used to this. When you lived the way she did, you learned to recognize that look. The look that said you don't belong here. The table was near the back. David saw her first. His face went through several emotions. Relief. Then concern. Then embarrassment. He stood quickly. Mom. Hi. Elena hugged him. Felt him stiffen slightly. Hi, sweetheart. Sophia stood too. Kissed Elena's cheek. Hi, Mrs. Williams. You look comfortable. There it was. The first shot. Polite. But a shot nonetheless. Elena smiled warmly. Thank you, dear. You look lovely. Then she turned to the other couple. The man extended his hand. Firm grip meant to establish dominance. Richard Ashford. Sophia's father. Elena Williams. Pleased to meet you. The woman didn't stand. Just extended her hand limply. Constance Ashford. Her eyes traveled over Elena's dress. Lingered on her shoes. The judgment was clear. They all sat. A waiter appeared. Richard ordered expensive wine without asking anyone. Constance folded her hands. Smiled at Elena. So, Elena, David tells us you live in Brooklyn? I do. 23 years. Same apartment. Rent controlled, I imagine? Yes. How? Sensible. The word hung like an insult. Richard leaned back. And you work in. What was it, David? David shifted uncomfortably. Mom works in architecture. Architecture. Richard nodded. Administrative work? Elena took a sip of water. Something like that. How nice, Constance said. It must be difficult, raising a child alone on a secretary's salary. There it was again. The assumption. Elena glanced at David. He was staring at his menu. His jaw tight. Sophia touched his hand. Gave him a look that said don't make a scene. The first course arrived. Oysters. Constance cut hers carefully. So, Elena, this must be quite special for you. A place like this. It's lovely, Elena agreed. I imagine you don't get out to restaurants like this often? Not as often as I'd like. Well, isn't that nice that David and Sophia brought you? Such thoughtful children. The implication was clear. They were doing Elena a favor. Richard cut in. You know what I always say? Success is measured by where you can afford to eat. A person who can dine at Le Bernardin regularly is a person who's made it in life. He said it looking directly at Elena. Elena set down her fork carefully. I find that true success is measured by how you treat the people serving you. Like our waiter. I haven't heard you say thank you to him once. Richard's face hardened. Constance's mouth opened slightly. David's eyes went wide. I beg your pardon? Richard said slowly. Elena remained calm. I just mean that kindness costs nothing. That's all. The table fell silent. The main course arrived. With each course, the comments grew more pointed. Do you follow fashion at all, Elena? I know it can be expensive to keep up. Brooklyn has changed so much. Must make it hard for longtime residents. Every comment was designed to remind Elena of her place. To make her feel small. Of course. Probably a bit strong for you. Richard signaled for the check. When it arrived, he made a show of pulling out a black American Express card. Dinner is on me. Consider it a welcome to the family, Elena. Constance patted Elena's hand. I hope this was enjoyable for you, dear. I'm sure you don't get treated to meals like this very often. They stood to leave. As they walked out, Elena heard Constance whisper to Richard. Not quietly enough. Well, at least David turned out well. Despite everything. Despite everything. Meaning despite having a mother like her. Elena kept walking. Kept her face neutral. Outside, Richard and Constance's car was already waiting. They got in their car. Drove away. David and Sophia stood on the sidewalk with Elena. Mom, David started. Thank you for coming. Elena looked at her son. Really looked at him. I need to talk to you both, Elena said quietly. But not here. Mom, it's late. Can we? Tomorrow, Elena said firmly. Both of you. Come to my apartment. Noon. Something in her tone made David stop arguing. Okay, Mom. Elena turned and walked toward the subway. Alone. Behind her, she heard Sophia whisper, do you think she's upset? And David's response, I don't know. Elena smiled to herself. Oh, David, I'm not upset. I'm disappointed. And tomorrow, you're going to understand why. Chapter 4 The Quiet Observer. Elena didn't sleep well that night. Not because of anger. Not even because of hurt. But because her mind wouldn't stop replaying the evening. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling. Thinking. She'd spent 23 years building a successful career. Had earned respect from some of the best architects in the country. But tonight, stripped of her title, she'd been treated like she wasn't worth the chair she sat in. Elena had experienced prejudice before. When she was young. When she was actually struggling. But she'd fought through all of that. Had proven herself. Over and over. At work, no one doubted her anymore. But tonight, she'd been reduced to assumptions. Poor. Unsophisticated. Charity case. And the worst part? Her son had let it happen. Elena sat up. Checked her phone. 3:47 a.m. She got out of bed. Made tea. Sat at her small table. Thought about David. She'd raised him to be kind. Humble. To work hard. But maybe she'd made a mistake. Maybe she'd taught him to be too humble. Or maybe David had learned that in Sophia's world, his mother was an embarrassment. The thought hurt. Elena picked up her phone. Scrolled through her contacts. Stopped at a name Patricia Lynn. Her colleague. Senior partner at the firm. Elena typed out a message. Pat, weird question. You busy tomorrow morning? The response came immediately. It's 4 a.m. I'm up with the baby. What do you need? Can I borrow something? I'll explain tomorrow. Sure. Come by at 10. Thank you. At 8 a.m., Elena showered and dressed. Put on nice clothes this time. She took the subway to Patricia's apartment on the Upper East Side. Patricia answered the door with a baby on her hip. Come in. Coffee? Please. Patricia poured coffee. So, what do you need to borrow? Elena took a breath. Your car. Patricia raised an eyebrow. My car? The Mercedes. Just for a few hours. Elena told her everything. The dinner. The comments. David's silence. When she finished, Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, those people sound like assholes. Elena laughed. Yeah, they really do. Patricia handed over her keys. Take the car. Keep it all day if you need. At 11:50, there was a knock on Elena's door. David and Sophia stood there. David looked nervous. Sophia looked uncomfortable. Come in, Elena said. They entered her small apartment. Sophia's eyes scanned the space, taking in the old furniture. Sit, Elena said. They sat on her old couch. Elena remained standing. David, she began. Last night was difficult for me. David shifted. Mom, I know Mr. and Mrs. Ashford can be intense, but they're good people. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. High standards, she repeated. Is that what you call it? They're used to a certain lifestyle, Sophia said. They don't mean anything by it. Elena looked at her daughter-in-law. Sophia, do you know what I do for a living? Sophia blinked. You work in architecture, like an assistant or something? Elena turned to David. Is that what you told her? David's face flushed. I said you worked in architecture. I wasn't sure exactly. He trailed off. And Elena understood. Her son didn't know what she did. Because she'd never told him. And he'd never asked. Elena walked to her desk. Pulled out a folder. Handed it to David. Open it, she said. David opened the folder. His face went pale. Inside were documents. Business cards. Project photos. Elena Williams, Executive Vice President, he read aloud. His hands shook slightly. Sophia leaned over. Saw the papers. Her eyes went wide. You're an executive? She whispered. Elena nodded. I've been executive VP for 6 years. David looked up at her. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because it didn't matter. My job is what I do to pay bills. It's not who I am. But Mom, you let people think. I never lied to you, David. You never asked. Sophia was staring at the papers. You designed the Harbor Point Tower? I led the structural team, yes. But you live here. You dress like. Why? Elena smiled. Because this is enough. This apartment. These clothes. This life. It's enough. Sophia shook her head. I don't understand. I know you don't, Elena said gently. David set down the folder. His eyes were wet. Last night, they treated you like I was poor, like I was beneath them. Yes. And I let them. Yes. David put his face in his hands. I'm so sorry, Mom. Elena felt her own eyes burn. David, look at me. He looked up. I'm not angry that you didn't know about my career. I'm disappointed that you didn't defend me regardless. I know, David whispered. I was just so worried about making a good impression. On who? People who judge others by their clothes. Sophia spoke up. Mrs. Williams, my parents aren't bad people. Elena turned to her. Sophia, your parents spent an entire evening trying to make me feel small. That's not a product of environment. That's a choice. The apartment fell silent. Elena stood, walked to her window, looked out at Brooklyn. I chose to live this way. Not because I couldn't afford better. But because I wanted to remember where I came from. She turned back to them. Money changes people if you let it. I didn't want that to happen to me. David wiped his eyes. Did it happen to me? Elena's heart broke a little. No, sweetheart. No. You just forgot something important. What? That your mother didn't raise you to fit in with people like the Ashfords. She raised you to be better than them. Sophia stood up suddenly. I need to call my parents. Elena held up a hand. Wait. Sit down. Sophia sat. Elena looked at both of them. I don't want you to tell them who I am. Not yet. David frowned. Why not? Elena smiled. Because I want to see something first. See what? Whether they're capable of changing their minds. She pulled out another paper. Monday morning, 10 a.m. There's a meeting at my office. About the Riverside Luxury Condominiums project. David looked at the paper. His eyes widened. Mr. Ashford. His company is bidding on this project. Elena nodded. His company is one of 3 finalists. And I'm the executive overseeing the selection committee. Sophia's face had gone white. You're going to choose the contractor? I'm going to be part of the decision, yes. Oh my God. If you reject their bid, my father will. Elena held up a hand. I'm not going to reject their bid out of spite, Sophia. I'm not cruel. If their proposal is the best, they'll get the contract. But they'll have to sit in a meeting room with me. We'll have to answer my questions. Without knowing who I am. David started to smile. Just a little. Mom, that's instructive, Elena supplied. She sat back down. Your in-laws think they know everything about a person based on appearance. Monday morning, they're going to learn they're wrong. Chapter 5 Business card, 1 twist. Monday morning came sharp and cold. Elena woke at 5:30 as always. But today, there was electricity in her routine. She dressed carefully. Not her simple clothes today. A tailored black suit. Fitted. Professional. Her good shoes. Italian leather. Her briefcase. She stood in front of her mirror. This was the other Elena. The one who commanded boardrooms. She left her apartment at 7 a.m. Arrived at her office at 7:45. Jennifer greeted her with coffee. The Riverside meeting is all set up. Conference room A. Who's here? Sterling Construction arrived 15 minutes ago. Ashford Development is in the lobby. Elena nodded. Good. I'll be reviewing files until the meeting starts. At 9:55, she made her way to conference room A. 3 other executives were already there. James Chen, senior partner. Patricia Lynn, CFO. Michael Rodriguez, Head of Client Relations. Morning, Elena, James said. Patricia caught her eye, raised an eyebrow. Elena gave her a small smile. At 9:55, Jennifer poked her head in. The firms are here. Should I send them in? Elena nodded. Let's start with Ashford Development. The door opened. Richard Ashford walked in first, followed by two associates. Richard was mid-sentence. And I told them we don't negotiate on timeline. He stopped, saw the executives at the table, saw Elena sitting at the head. His face went through several expressions. Confusion, recognition, shock. Elena? He said. Elena smiled. Professional. Cool. Mr. Ashford. Good morning. Please, have a seat. Richard stood frozen. His associates looked confused. Sir? One of them prompted. Richard slowly moved to the table. Sat down. His eyes never left Elena. I didn't realize you worked here, he managed. Did David not mention it? You assumed I was an assistant. Yes, I remember. The temperature in the room dropped. Elena gestured to the others. This is James Chen, senior partner. Patricia Lynn, CFO. Michael Rodriguez, client relations. We'll be evaluating your presentation today. For the next 45 minutes, Richard and his team presented their proposal. It was good, professional, detailed. Richard was an experienced developer. But something was off. He kept stumbling, losing his place, glancing at Elena. He was rattled, and Elena didn't make it easier. Your timeline seems ambitious, she said when he finished. You're projecting 18 months? Yes, we have extensive experience. Your average completion time on your last 5 projects was 22 months. What makes you think this one will be different? Richard faltered. Well, we've streamlined our process. How? Elena leaned forward. How have you streamlined your process? What specific changes? Richard looked at his associates. They looked equally uncertain. Elena made a note. And your budget includes a 15% contingency fund? Yes. That seems low for a waterfront project. We typically recommend 20 to 25%. We're confident in our estimates. But his voice had lost its authority. Elena continued asking questions. Hard questions. Fair questions. But hard. After an hour, Elena closed her notebook. Thank you, Mr. Ashford. We'll be in touch by Friday. Richard stood. Ms. Williams, I want to apologize. For what? Elena asked calmly. Richard's mouth opened, closed. For not realizing who you were. Elena tilted her head. Is that what you're apologizing for? Not realizing I had a title? Richard's face went red. No, I mean. Elena stood, extended her hand. It was a pleasure meeting professionally. We'll be in touch. After they left, Patricia burst out laughing. Oh my God, did you see his face? James was grinning. That was masterful. Elena allowed herself a small smile. I only asked the questions we ask all the contractors. The executive team reviewed all 3 presentations. Meridian Builders was strongest. Meridian, Elena said. Quality matters most for this project. They agreed unanimously. Later, Elena's phone buzzed. Text from David. Mom, Sophia's parents just called. They're very upset. Can we talk? Elena texted back, come to my apartment tonight. 7 p.m. And bring Sophia's parents. It's time we all had an honest conversation. Chapter 6 The Truth Conversation. Elena left work at 5. Took the subway home. Back in her apartment, she changed into comfortable clothes. Jeans, a soft sweater, made tea, set out cookies, simple things. This was her space, her real space. And tonight, everyone would see the real Elena. All of her. At 6:55, there was a knock. Elena opened the door. David stood there, looking anxious. Behind him, Sophia. Behind them, Richard and Constance Ashford. Looking furious. Come in, Elena said calmly. They filed into her small apartment. Richard and Constance's eyes swept the space. The disconnect was clear on their faces. This woman, this executive, lived here. Please, sit, Elena said. Richard and Constance took the couch. David and Sophia took the chairs. Elena remained standing. Would anyone like tea? She offered. No, Richard said curtly. What we'd like is an explanation. Elena raised an eyebrow. An explanation for what? For Richard gestured around. For this. For letting us believe you were. Poor? Elena supplied. I never told you I was poor, Richard. You assumed. Constance found her voice. You deliberately deceived us. Elena shook her head. No. I dressed the way I always dress. I behaved the way I always behave. You made judgments. That's on you. You could have corrected us. Constance insisted. Why? Why was it my responsibility to correct your assumptions? Why couldn't you have just been kind? The question hung in the air. Constance's mouth opened, closed. She had no answer. Richard stood. This is ridiculous. You sabotaged our business proposal out of spite. Elena's voice went cold. Sit down, Richard. Something in her tone made him sit. I did not sabotage your proposal. I asked you the same questions I ask every contractor. And your company didn't win because there was a better option. She handed him a folder. These are my notes from all 3 presentations. Read them. You'll see I evaluated you fairly. Richard opened the folder, scanned the pages. His expression shifted. You actually recommended us for a secondary project. Yes, the Harbor District renovation. Your proposal was better suited to that. Richard set down the folder. Looked at Elena with new eyes. I don't understand you. Elena sat down finally. I know you don't. Let me help you understand. She took a breath. 23 years ago, I was a single mother with no money. I worked 3 jobs to keep David fed. I lived in this same apartment because it was all I could afford. David's eyes were wet. I went to school at night. Studied architecture. Got my first job as a drafting assistant. I worked my way up. Slowly. 10 years ago, I became a senior partner. 6 years ago, executive vice president. My salary is $340,000 a year. Plus bonuses. Constance inhaled sharply. I could afford Manhattan. Could buy a penthouse. Could wear Chanel every day. Elena gestured around. But I choose this. Because this is real. This is who I am. The job is just a job. But it's not my identity. She looked at Richard and Constance. You two have built your entire identity around money. Around status. You looked at me Friday night and decided I was worthless. Because I wasn't wearing the right clothes. You treated me like I was beneath you. Like I should be grateful you were sharing a table with me. And my son sat there and let you do it. Elena's voice broke slightly. David put his face in his hands. I'm not angry at you for being rich. I'm angry at you for being cruel. There's a difference. The room was silent. Constance's face had crumpled. Tears streamed down. I didn't realize. We didn't. Think, Elena finished. You didn't think about how your words would impact me. Richard cleared his throat. His voice was hoarse. You're right. Everything you said is right. He looked at his hands. I grew up poor. Did you know that? I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio. My father was a factory worker. I hated being poor. Hated the way people looked at us. So I swore I'd make something of myself. And I did. I built my company from nothing. But somewhere along the way, I became the person I hated. I became the person who looks down on others. His voice broke. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm truly, deeply sorry. Constance reached over and took Elena's hand. I've never struggled. I grew up with money. It made me blind. Made me think that wealth meant worth. But you've shown me I was wrong. She squeezed Elena's hand. You are one of the most dignified women I've ever met. And I'm ashamed of how we treated you. Sophia spoke up, her voice trembling. I'm sorry too, Mrs. Williams. I knew they could be judgmental. But I didn't think it was my place to say anything. I was wrong. David finally looked up. His face was red from crying. Mom, I failed you. I was supposed to protect you, and instead I let them hurt you. I was so worried about fitting into Sophia's family. About being good enough, that I forgot the most important thing. You're my mother. You made me who I am. And you're worth more than all of them combined. He stood, knelt in front of Elena. I love you, Mom. And I'm so sorry. Elena pulled him into her arms. Held him like she used to when he was small. I love you too, baby. I love you too. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Elena gently pulled back. Looked at all of them. Here's what I need you to understand. All of you. True wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in your character. In how you treat people. Money is a tool. That's all. It can be used for good or for harm. But it's not who you are. She looked at Richard and Constance. You have money. That's fine. But use it with humility. With kindness. Then she looked at David and Sophia. And you two need to build your marriage on values, not appearances. Elena stood, walked to her kitchen, came back with cookies and milk. Now, let's have some cookies and actually talk to each other. As people, as family. They all smiled through their tears. And for the next 2 hours, they did exactly that. They talked. About childhoods. About struggles. About fears and hopes. Richard told stories about his trailer park days. Constance admitted she'd always felt inadequate. Sophia shared her anxieties. David talked about pressure. And Elena told them about the lonely nights. The fear that she wasn't enough. They laughed. They cried. They listened. And slowly, the walls came down. By the time Richard and Constance left, something had shifted. They weren't friends yet, but they were on their way to being family. Real family. Wednesday morning, Elena was back at work. Her office phone rang at 9:45 a.m. Elena Williams speaking. Ms. Williams, this is Richard Ashford. Elena sat up straighter. Mr. Ashford, good morning. I'm calling to thank you for the Harbor District recommendation. We received the contract this morning. Congratulations. Your proposal was the best fit for that project. There was a pause. Elena, may I ask you something? Of course. The Riverside project. The one that went to Meridian. If things had been different, if we'd met you first, would we have won? Elena considered the question carefully. No. Meridian's proposal was stronger. Better safety record. More innovative approach. Higher cost, yes, but worth it. But Harbor District was perfect for your firm. Richard was quiet for a moment. You really didn't let personal feelings influence your decision? No, because that would make me unprofessional. You're a better person than I am, Richard said quietly. I'm just different. We all have our strengths. Another pause. Elena, Constance and I would like to invite you to dinner. A real dinner. Our place this time. Saturday evening? 6 o'clock? I'd like that. Saturday evening arrived. Elena drove to Connecticut. The Ashford home was beautiful. Colonial style, but warm. Lived in. Constance answered the door wearing slacks and a sweater. No jewelry except her wedding ring. Elena, come in, come in. Richard emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron. Elena, welcome. I hope you like lasagna? Elena laughed. You cooked? Well, I tried. Constance supervised. They ate in the kitchen. Not the formal dining room. Around a wooden table. The atmosphere was completely different. Relaxed. Genuine. Warm. They talked about everything. Richard told a story about accidentally demolishing the wrong wall. On his first job, Constance shared about her volunteer work at a women's shelter. I started going last week. After our conversation, I realized I'd spent my whole life consuming and never giving back. The women there reminded me of you, Elena. Strong. Determined. I've been helping with resume writing. Small things, but it feels important. Elena reached across and squeezed her hand. It is important. After dinner, Richard pulled Elena aside. Pulled out the Harbor District folder. This is the project plan. I want your input. I want to do this right. For the next hour, they worked together. She pointed out concerns, suggested modifications. He listened, took notes, treated her like the expert she was. When they finished, Richard said, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About becoming the person I hated. I spent 30 years building my company. My wealth. Told myself it was for my family. But really? It was for me. To prove I wasn't that poor kid anymore. And I forgot who that kid was. His voice broke. Can I change? At my age? Do you want to change? Yes. God, yes. Then you will. Change starts with awareness. You're aware now. Richard wiped his eyes. Thank you for not giving up on us. They rejoined the others. The evening ended warmly. As Elena drove home to Brooklyn, she felt like the richest woman in the world. Because she'd gained something money couldn't buy. A family that understood. Chapter 8 The definition of a true rich person. 6 months later, spring arrived in Brooklyn with gentleness. Cherry blossoms bloomed early. The streets filled with pink petals. Elena was in her apartment. Saturday morning. Coffee steaming. Looking at photos. David and Sophia had sent them last night. Ultrasound images. Mom, you're going to be a grandmother. We wanted you to be the first to know. Elena had cried. Happy tears. Her son. Having a baby. Her grandchild. Her phone rang. Constance. Elena, did you hear the news? I did. I'm so happy. Sophia wants you to be at all the doctor appointments. I'd be honored. Constance's voice softened. Elena, these past 6 months have been the best of my life. How so? Because I've learned what matters. Richard and we volunteer together twice a week. We help families who've lost everything. Last week, a woman came in. She'd just left an abusive relationship. Had 2 little kids, nothing but the clothes on her back. I looked at her, and I saw you. Saw the strength it takes to rebuild. We helped her get an apartment, get a job, get childcare. And when she cried and thanked us, I realized something. This is what wealth is for. Not for collecting things, but for lifting others up. You taught me that. After hanging up, Elena made breakfast. She ate at her small table by the window. Watched Brooklyn wake up. At noon, Elena headed out. She'd made plans. With David and Sophia. With Richard and Constance. They were meeting at a volunteer event in the Bronx. Building homes with Habitat for Humanity. Elena arrived at the construction site. Dozens of volunteers. She found her family already there. David and Richard were carrying lumber. Sophia and Constance were painting. They all wore jeans and old t-shirts. Work clothes. No designer labels. Elena picked up a paintbrush. Joined them. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sophia said, "Mrs. Williams, how did you stay humble? Even when you became successful?" Elena dipped her brush in paint. "I think it's because I never forgot where I started. Never forgot having nothing. Some people want to forget their struggles. But I think that's a mistake. Your struggles shape you, and money amplifies who you already are. If you're kind, money lets you be more kind. If you're cruel, money makes you more cruel. Money doesn't change you, it reveals you." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Constance spoke up. "When we first met you, I felt sorry for you. Now, I want to be like you." Elena smiled. "You don't want to be like me. You want to be the best version of yourself." They worked until sunset. Built 2 homes. 2 families would have a place to live. The family whose home they'd worked on came to thank them. A mother. 3 kids. "Thank you for giving us hope," the mother said. Elena knelt down to the kids' level. "Do you know what makes a home?" The littlest one said, "A roof?" Elena smiled. "That's part of it, but the most important part is love. As long as you have love, you have a home." The mother hugged Elena. "You understand. You really understand." "I do. I've been where you are. It gets better. I promise." That evening, the whole family had dinner together. At a small Italian place in Elena's neighborhood. They squeezed around a table. Talked over each other. Laughed. Shared food. Like real family. Richard raised his glass. "I'd like to make a toast. To Elena, who taught us what it really means to be rich. To family. To love. To what actually matters. Salud," they all said. After dinner, they walked Elena home. Through the Brooklyn streets. At her building, they hugged goodbye. David lingered. "Mom, can I come up? Just for a minute?" "Of course." In her apartment, David looked around. At the old furniture. The simple life. "I used to be embarrassed by this place. I know. Now I see it differently. I see home. I see love. I see everything that matters." He turned to her. "And I hope my kid gets to grow up feeling as loved as I did." Elena pulled him into a hug. "They will, baby. They absolutely will." After David left, Elena got ready for bed. But before she slept, she wrote in her journal, "I've learned that true wealth is measured in the people who love you. The lives you've touched. The kindness you've shown. The peace you feel. Being underestimated showed me who people really are. Forgiveness is powerful. People can change. The richest person in the room isn't the one with the most money. It's the one with the most peace." Elena closed the journal. Turned off the light. She thought about her granddaughter or grandson. About teaching them to value people over possessions. About David and Sophia. About Richard and Constance. About how they'd all grown and changed. But mostly, she thought about wholeness. About finally being known for who she truly is. And being loved for it. As Elena drifted to sleep, her last thought was this. The mother they'd underestimated had taught them all a lesson. The lesson wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about staying true to yourself. About measuring success by what you give, not what you get. About understanding that the most powerful statement is simply being authentically, unapologetically yourself. And that was the greatest wealth of all. The end.